In the year 2095, scientists at the prestigious Neogenics Institute believed that they had made a remarkable discovery that would completely stop the aging process. Their excitement was palpable as preliminary tests showed promising results on cell cultures and animal models. The research team, led by the brilliant but ambitious Dr. Elizabeth Chen, announced with confidence that indefinite lifespans of at least 1,000 years, perhaps beyond, would now be possible. They developed this elixir of youth with unprecedented speed, calling it Eternis, and tested it on willing volunteers under experimental protocols that many would later criticize as rushed. They found it gave remarkable results in stopping the aging process, with test subjects showing reversal of wrinkles, increased energy, improved cognitive function, and regeneration of cellular tissues. Soon, it was being marketed to the general population in North America through an emergency approval process that bypassed many traditional safety protocols. The enthusiasm was contagious, and within weeks, European regulatory bodies followed suit, granting similar approvals despite concerns from some scientists who urged more caution and long-term studies. Finally, the rest of the world, including densely populated regions of Asia, began distributing Eternis under various brand names but all containing the same core formula. At first the results were magnificent, almost too good to be true, with people reporting feeling decades younger within days of taking the treatment. Social media was flooded with before and after photos showing dramatic transformations, and the wealthy and famous flaunted their renewed youth on global broadcasts. Everybody was getting this substance and taking it. They even started giving it to 18 and 19-year-olds so they could freeze their youth forever, preserving their peak physical condition for centuries to come. Global stock markets soared as Eternis manufacturers became the most valuable companies in history almost overnight. But after a few months, there were some disturbing reports that it was having the opposite effect in some people. They started aging at an incredibly fast rate, developing wrinkles, gray hair, and age spots at an alarming pace. These cases were quickly suppressed by media campaigns funded by the pharmaceutical giants, who dismissed them as unrelated or psychosomatic conditions. Then, after another few months, it started to affect the rest of the population this way, too numerous to hide or explain away. Panic began to spread as more people noticed accelerated aging symptoms, and emergency rooms worldwide were overwhelmed with patients exhibiting advanced aging symptoms. The scientists who developed it became very frightened and upset as they realized the magnitude of what was happening, holding emergency meetings behind closed doors while publicly maintaining that the effects were temporary and manageable. Dr. Chen began receiving death threats and retreated to a secure compound as public unrest grew more intense. They discovered that after 3 to 6 months of taking Eternis, aging was actually accelerated to 10 years for every month that passed, a horrifying rate that meant people were visibly aging before their loved ones' eyes. Governments declared states of emergency as healthcare systems collapsed under the weight of rapidly aging populations requiring intensive care. Scientists studied the elixir and found very disturbing results that they had overlooked in their rush to market. The compound had properties they hadn't fully understood. The elixir was a bottle of a liquid substance that was taken only once until the bottle was empty, marketed as a one-and-done miracle cure that would work indefinitely. It consisted of nanoparticles of the so-called anti-aging compound where the molecules had a spherical shape and deposited throughout the body, including the brain and every organ, creating what was meant to be a permanent shield against aging factors. They were actually harder than steel and never dissolved. They stayed in the body forever, quenching oxygen-free radicals that are the main cause of aging, at least according to the prevailing scientific understanding. They also deposited themselves deep inside every cell, even the mitochondria, which is where the scientists believe the problem was caused, a fatal oversight that would doom billions. It seemed the scientists overlooked the fact that this compound upset the adenosine triphosphate energy cycle inside the mitochondria, essentially causing cells to burn through their life cycles at a dramatically accelerated rate. Early test subjects who had been on Eternis the longest were now biological centenarians despite being chronologically in their 30s or 40s, their bodies withering as their telomeres shortened at a catastrophic rate. This process could not be reversed, All the people who took this elixir would age at about the rate of 10 years for every month, and absolutely nothing could ever be done for them. Medical personnel watched helplessly as patients who had been vibrant and youthful just weeks before now lay dying of old age, their organs failing one by one. In their attempt to stop the aging process completely, the scientists had instead unwittingly done the opposite, creating a global catastrophe unprecedented in human history. And nothing could be done to stop it once the nanoparticles integrated with cellular structures. Desperate attempts to develop countermeasures failed as the nanoparticles proved impossible to neutralize or remove from the body. Most, if not all, of the human species was destined to become extinct in a short period of time, perhaps within a year or two at most. Children wept as they watched their parents transform into elderly people before their eyes, while those who had given Eternis to their teenage children faced the unbearable horror of watching them rapidly age and die. The streets became filled with people who looked decades older than they had just months before, their bodies failing as osteoporosis, dementia, and organ failure set in prematurely. Society began to collapse as workers in essential services aged too rapidly to continue their jobs, and knowledge and skills were lost as experts succumbed to the accelerated aging. Reports came in from isolated communities that had rejected Eternis due to religious or cultural beliefs, and these became the last bastions of normal human lifespan. Desperate refugees tried to reach these communities, but many were turned away for fear they might somehow spread their condition. Dr. Chen, now physically resembling a woman in her 90s, though only 43 years old, made a final broadcast accepting responsibility for what she called the unforgivable hubris of playing God with human biology. Her message cut off mid-sentence as her heart finally gave out, a symbolic moment that was rebroadcast around the world. Governments established euthanasia centers for those who didn't wish to endure the full progression of their accelerated aging, with lines stretching for miles outside these facilities. Fertility rates plummeted to near zero as reproductive systems were among the first to fail under the accelerated aging process, meaning that even if some humans survived, repopulation would be nearly impossible. Black markets emerged selling fake cures that did nothing but drain the resources of desperate people grasping for hope where none existed. The few children who had been too young to receive Eternis watched in terror as the adult world crumbled around them, knowing they would be left alone in a world they weren't prepared to inherit. Religious movements sprung up declaring the end times had come, while others claimed that the accelerated aging was divine punishment for humanity's arrogance. In the final months, as major cities became virtual ghost towns filled with the prematurely aged and dying, a team of scientists who had opposed Eternis from the beginning documented the catastrophe for whatever future might come after. They recorded how the nanoparticles, designed to be indestructible to ensure permanence, had indeed achieved immortality, not for humans, but for themselves, as they would remain in the earth long after the last human bodies had decomposed to dust. The irony was not lost on them that in seeking eternal youth, humanity had instead ensured its own premature extinction. As communication networks failed and darkness fell across once bright metropolises, the last coherent message broadcast worldwide came from a 16-year-old girl who had never taken Eternis, speaking from a community of survivors in a remote mountain region. Remember us, remember what we did, and if life ever returns to this world, may it learn from our fatal mistake, that nature's cycles cannot be cheated, and death is the price we pay for life. Her words echoed across nearly empty airwaves as the human epoch drew to its premature close, the victims of Eternis having aged decades in mere months, their civilizations crumbling to dust almost as rapidly as their bodies, a monument to the dangers of unchecked scientific advancement and the human desire to outrun our most fundamental limitation, our mortality.